What if I told you that a traffic ticket in your glove box isn't about safety, it's about revenue? And today I'm going to be exposing how citations are treated as negotiable instruments and how discharge applies to tickets the same way it does with debts. Now, before we dive into this video, this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice. Remember to do your due diligence. You dig what I'm saying? As you can see, I have a very different setup. I'm actually in Orlando for the Volt conference with Patrick Bet David. So for this entire week, you'll probably be seeing me making content here, okay, from my hotel. You dig what I'm saying? Humble hotel, but we still gonna keep diving into the content because there's some things that I want to talk about. We're on this big picture run right now, talking about some of the concepts that I've laid out prior and kind of making more of a big picture explainer, okay? And today we're going to be talking about traffic tickets, okay? Now, obviously I have my notes here, my laptop. We're going to dive straight into it. And my goal for today is to take the mystique away, okay? To bring real truth when it comes to traffic tickets, police officers, and things of that nature. And if you guys want me to do a deep dive, let me know in the comment section down below, okay? And if you ever dealt with police officers and traffic tickets and you gotten good results or whatever the case may be, or had good experiences or even bad experiences, throw it down in the comment section below, all right? Because hopefully this video can help prevent that. Now, I don't know if I already said this, but everything that I'm going to talk about today, it's important that I emphasize that it's not legal advice. It's not financial advice. Remember to do your due diligence. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tap in. All right, let's dive in. So let's just talk about the public side versus the private side as it pertains to traffic tickets and as it pertains to the police, okay? So here's the public side. Tickets are about enforcing the law and keeping the road safe. At least that's what you would think. But the reality is tickets are actually commercial paper, revenue streams for courts and municipalities. I believe I said that right. Don't butcher me for not saying it right. But every citation that is issued is typically backed by a financial process that most people never see. Everything that I talk about on this channel, the reason why we're very big on not getting wrapped up in this matrix is because paying bills are a matrix. Paying traffic tickets are a matrix. Anything that is connected to the government in that aspect, it's a matrix, because ultimately it's not that they want you to pay, they want you to perform, and your performance takes energy. That's what they want. They want your energy, okay? So if you expend your energy to make money to pay off these debts or traffic tickets, then they, in essence, have control over you. Okay, so behind the scenes, they're making money off of these traffic tickets that we originally signed, and then they come after you for the fine or whatever the case may be. And when we say, well, if you're driving around in the streets and you're driving recklessly, like, yeah, you should get a ticket. But when you think about common law, and if you really go back to true law, not this legal stuff, but true law, you can only stop someone or imprison someone or arrest or fine someone if they harm someone. And you driving around from A to B privately, as long as you don't harm nobody, that is not a crime. But they treat it like driving against the rules. Because obviously you don't want to drive recklessly, but if you're driving against the rules or the policies, then they can enforce their policies and make you pay a fine. That's what they want you to think. But the reality is that it's an opportunity for them to make money. So they'll find any and every reason to pull you over. Okay? You think they're pulling you over because you're black, or you think they're pulling them, I mean, that does play a part. But the only reason they pull certain people over and able to get results is because our lack of knowledge of what's actually happening. Okay? And it's not to say that you can go and start expressing the private reality versus what we see on the surface. You can knowledge bomb the police officer, but it's not going to help. It's only for your understanding so that you have a reason why you can attack this and have a little bit more knowledge towards it, more belief. And I talk about belief versus knowing, but It starts with belief, and then you having a belief will lead you seeking the knowledge. So let's talk about how every ticket functions as a negotiable instrument to further affirm the point that I'm talking about, okay? So most people see traffic tickets as nothing more than a fine, but legally it functions like commercial paper, okay? Under UCC 3-104, it explains what a negotiable instrument must have. A negotiable instrument must be a written promise in order to pay a sum of money. It must be signed by the party issuing it. And it must be payable on demand and at a definite time. A traffic citation checks all of these boxes because it's a written order demanding a payment of a fine. It has the officer's signature, and when you sign it, you acknowledge the liability and agree to appear and pay. And it specifies the amount due and the deadline. This means that the ticket is not just a warning, it's a commercial instrument that creates a financial claim, a financial asset, something that the courts can use to make money, okay? Or the police department, whoever. I don't know who monetizes it, more likely the court. But once you sign it, the state treats that ticket as a bonded obligation that can be entered into its financial system just like any other negotiable instrument. So again, a traffic ticket is just like a promissory note. A traffic ticket is just like a coupon. A traffic ticket is just like a bond. It's a security. It can be monetized. This is why you're able to discharge traffic tickets simply for the simple fact that, again, it always brings up a case of unjust enrichment because they're going to be enriching themselves for what reason? You know what I mean? Oh, because you drove recklessly. So I harmed the state because I drove 10 to 15 miles over the speed limit. But I didn't hurt nobody. I didn't crash into anybody. You know what I mean? Roads were clear, okay? Before I go off on a tangent, it's a financial gain. So if you're getting a traffic ticket, you think that it's about them providing justice. It's so that they can make money. Police officers have a monthly quota, okay? And we all know this, but we didn't know what their quota was, okay? How many tickets? No, they actually get paid to get a commission, okay? So I'm gonna be talking about how to challenge this. But first, before I dive into that, let's talk about the court system as a bank, okay? When you walk into traffic court, you think you are entering a courtroom, but in reality, you stepped into a banking operation disguised as justice because the reality is they're just trying to get your money. They're just trying to make money. They're trying to participate in commerce. And the only way that they can participate in commerce is if you give them the authorization, okay? So think about it. Courts process tickets the way banks process checks as financial instruments to be settled. Just like the bank, okay? Each ticket becomes a bonded claim that can be monetized through the court's accounting system. And this is why courts push fines, plea bargains, court costs, and they're not just enforcing the law, they're actually liquidating the instrument. See, that's the thing, man. We think we are doing this like this is how life is supposed to be. And if you've ever felt like, no, this is not how life is supposed to be, go to work and pay bills until I die. I can't even drive privately. I gotta be afraid of police officers and things of that nature. But it's all a financial game on the back end, okay? So even when we talk about even some of these high profile criminals like Young Thug, YMW Melly, P. Diddy, you know what I mean? Like they are making the most money for those cases, and this is why they are dragging it out as much as they do. You know what I mean? And you wonder why things like Epstein and all of that, like that's not truly being publicized and talked about as much. And yes, they are making a lot of money from that. But when we talk about P. Diddy and all them, it's just a high profile. Before I dive into that, it's a money machine. Okay. This is one of the #1 ways that the United States makes money. Okay. If traffic tickets were purely about safety, why can't you simply pay money to erase the penalty? Okay. Why do I have to go to court? And I mean, yes, in essence you can, but why can't I just pay? Why do I have to sign a ticket or whatever the case may be? Why can't it actually be a formal contract? Why is it a negotiable instrument? Why is it something that I can accept for value? And the common person will say, well, it isn't something you can, don't accept it for value, just pay it. Yeah, legitimately. Okay, and I'm not at all telling you not to, put yourself in a criminal situation. Okay. I can sit here and say, stop paying your tickets, and you stop paying your tickets with no like real strategy, no real instruction. And you just go based off of what I say and say, you know what? I'm going to stop because Nicholas has the knowledge in it and he says to stop. So I'll just stop, not really having legal merit behind it. But if you don't pay your ticket, you could potentially go to jail. You could potentially get a warrant for your arrest. So be careful. Okay. Be strategic. All right. So you can't simply play money because the ticket itself is about revenue. The court acts as a clearinghouse to turn that piece of paper into cash for the court. Okay. And this is why the courtroom feels less like justice and more like a collection agency with a judge. That's all it is. It's a collection agency. It's a bank. Okay. And if you think about it, they carry out the duty for banks that are attempting to sue you for debt. Okay. So this is why they kind of go hand in hand and why they are in cahoots and why they perform legal bias and things of that nature, because they all work together to make money. They're business partners. All right. This is what you're going against. Yes, the game is rigged. Sorry. But given the fact that it is rigged, there is still remedy. They have to give you remedies to be able to get out of this rigged system. But it takes knowledge, it takes dedication, it takes understanding. All right. Now, people often ask, why do traffic tickets come with such extreme consequences, suspended licenses, warrants, and even jail time? You don't see that with a credit card bill. See, here's the reason why. A traffic citation is not treated as an ordinary debt. It's treated as a bonded financial obligation tied directly to the state's revenue system. So here's the thing. When the state is your opponent, you could potentially go to jail. You know what I mean? This is why you have to be strategic with the IRS, with the state, with the police officers. Okay? Some people will see this and they say, well, I'm going to exercise it off of emotion. No, have a strict strategy and game plan before you even attack these higher levels like the state, like the IRS, okay? So given the fact that it's a bonded financial obligation tied to the state, they depend heavily on ticket revenue. And in some cities, fines make up 10 to 20% of the entire city's budget. And that's why they treat you so harshly when you don't pay it. Because it's almost like you messing up their money, okay? If people stopped paying tickets, the revenue stream collapses, and that's why the state uses aggressive enforcement to guarantee performance. That's 10 to 20% of their revenue. 10 to 20% of their revenue, let's just say if their revenue was what, 200 million? 10% of 200 million is what, 20 million? 20% of that is what, 40 million? $40 million, just gone. That's why they ain't gonna play. Okay. So when you don't pay, the penalties will escalate, not because the state is mad at you, but because it needs to protect this financial instrument. That financial instrument is more important than you as a human being. Okay. So license suspensions, warrants, jail time are typically pressure tactics, and they ensure that you comply and keep feeding the system. It's less about safety and more about securing the state's income. So yeah, you could potentially go to jail. You could potentially get jail time, a warrant for your arrest. So you don't want to play around with traffic tickets, okay? Try your best, all right, to communicate. And we're about to talk about how to be able to fight against traffic tickets, okay? At least to be able to perform and have a better negotiation space when it comes to challenging tickets, okay? So just like credit cards or loans, traffic tickets can be addressed through discharge principles, okay? But you have to be strategic. So follow the strategy that I'm about to talk about. Remember, this is not legal advice. Take this for face value. Remember to do your due diligence, please, all right? Number one, conditional acceptance. You want to accept the ticket if the officer or the court proves it as a lawful claim, not just as a commercial paper. So, hey, I'll accept the ticket if you can prove it to be lawful. If you can prove your lawful authority to give me this ticket, then I will pay it. I'm not saying or refusing to pay it. I just need you to provide your jurisdiction, prove your standing to collect on this particular debt. Conditional acceptance is the language that you need in order to communicate with the debt collector and communicate with traffic tickets, courts, and police officers. Because it's not at all moving in dishonor. You're performing if they can provide the valid standing. So, after conditional acceptance, let's just say they go to your conditions You want to tender an offer in honor, a lawful method to settle obligations without traditional payment. So you can accept that ticket for value and say, hey, look, this is something that is monetized. I accept it for value. Okay? And under UCC 3-603, if you accept it for value and they refuse it, then there is discharge, which also brings up an argument when it comes to that ticket. Okay? Debt validation. You can demand a proof of claim. Many agencies can't provide the original bonded instrument. If they don't have the original bonded instrument, then they're not the legal holder in due course. If they're not the legal holder in due course, then they'll have authority to collect on the debt. Okay? Not only that, though, when you do the conditional acceptance, you're going to go in court and pretty much do this anyway. You're going to ask them to prove, if you go to court, you're going to ask them to prove they're standing to collect on the debt. You're going to ask them to prove that you was actually doing whatever you said that you was doing. You know what I mean? That police officer is going to have to actually show up. You have a right to face your accuser. Okay? You can do UCC filings where you can secure your role as the creditor, but only if you have a trust, and use the administrative process. Okay? Through notices, affidavits, and estoppels, so you can be able to flip the dishonor onto them. Because once you ask them to provide a proof of claim, they are now under a contract to provide a proof of claim. Okay? If they don't provide a proof of claim, because you sent them a presentment is a demand. If you send them a demand and they dishonor you or they ignore you, then that means that they improperly validated the debt. They didn't properly validate the debt. They didn't properly prove their claim. They couldn't make a lawful claim. And everything that you put in your notices and affidavits stand in truth. So if you put in there that this claim is, they have no authorization to collect on this claim, and they don't respond or rebut to that and prove their authorization, then now they acquiesce. Okay? If you flip the dishonor back onto the other party, now whatever contract that they will say that you breached, now it's a matter of you challenge that very contract that they said that you breached. So they really have nothing to stand on because you breached a contract that wasn't even valid in the first place. Okay? So traffic tickets are not simply about punishment or safety. They are financial instruments feeding a revenue machine. The state acts as a creditor, and you're forced into a debtor's role, and the court enforces performance. Once you understand that tickets are negotiable instruments, you see why enforcement is so aggressive and why remedy exists through discharge. Okay? Discharge is there to give us balance. Yes, the system is rigged, but only because you don't know about discharging. You don't know about the remedies that are out there to really balance out this rigged system. Okay? Someone says, well, I have to do all of this just to be able to, you know what I mean, survive. Yeah, it's crazy that that's how life works. But it's just like how Jim Rohn says, right? He says, he tells a story and he says, imagine there's this big black thing, right? That's over the town. And every 20 to 30 minutes, it goes up in the sky and it comes crashing down, boom. And it does this every 20 to 30 minutes. Now you can look at that and say, well, that's a weird arrangement. I don't like how that goes. You can, but do it from over there. You know what I mean? You don't have to like it. And you can continue to ask this, why is this question? Or you can just take action and get from under it. Okay? So get from under it. Yes, emotionally, it doesn't seem moral. It's frustrating. But if you know how to do it, then you can get from under it. Okay? Every 20 to 30 minutes, you know how to walk, take a couple of steps and get from under it. Okay? So that's my point behind my videos. Okay? So the next time you get pulled over, handed a citation, remember it's not just a ticket, it's a commercial instrument. And the question is, will you keep acting as the debtor, or will you start to move and start positioning yourself as the creditor? Start making demands, stop asking for permission. Okay? So you can treat traffic tickets just like you treat all other debts, loans and everything. So if you watch any of my videos on my YouTube channel, and at the end, I'm gonna link you to my previous YouTube video, but if you watch any of my YouTube videos on this channel, you will know that we are breaking down the exact same process, but bringing more understanding to what's happening behind the scenes so that you'll have more confidence to be able to go after and attack, all right? Thank you guys for watching the video. I love you guys. Remember to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, tap into the mentorship down below, tap into the school community. You can get into the school community for 7 days for free. Tap in. I love you guys. Cue the outro.